I'm going to show you how to build the Smart Kart to go with your Smart Station or your Smart Bench. Hi, I'm Ron Paulk, and this is the Smart Woodshop. If you want to get a set of plans to build a Smart Woodshop for yourself, one of my workbenches, or the brand new Smart Kart, there's a link in the description of this video down below. The plans for the Smart Kart are now available for you to download. They've been a long haul. What I started out with and I thought was going to be really simple evolved into these mobility carts to take the smart benches in a direction to a place that I never envisioned, but is making the most dramatic difference in how I work. I'm not going to be able to build the Smart Kart for you from beginning to end the way that I've done with other plans in the past, but this is still a companion video to go with the plans and should answer your questions. The very first thing you're going to do is take a piece of 18mm plywood and we're going to detail the bottom out. We're going to use a router and a bushing to make these cutouts. Now there's a template that is in the plans that I would love to show you. It has these 8 slots set up to cut with your router and your bushing. You'll be just working on a blank piece of plywood that you've cut to the proper dimensions. You're going to clamp that template on. Now I took the template home to finish the plans up. This is another template that we will use on this, and I'll make a cut so you'll see how to use a bushing. What I'm going to do with this to cut the center handle is going to be identical to what you do to these. You'll make those 8 cuts and then you will flip it over, flush it up on the other end, clamp it, and make those 8 cuts. Go ahead and make the handle. I started with these slots here. This is from an earlier design. This template, this one is from the Paulk workbench and the Paulk station to cut out the tabs for the sawhorses and then the handle. I have the center laid out now on the bottom, and I have my center lines on the pattern. I'll just line those up. And I'll make a few passes, plunging just in a small amount, making the cut, plunging in a little bit more and a little bit more. I don't want to plow through and do it all at once. I want a cleaner cut. I like to soften the edges. It's where I'm going to grab, and I also like it to look a little nicer. This is a chamfer bit that's a 45 degree. It's a full-on 45 degree cutter with the bearing, and I just set it so that only a small amount of the chamfer shows. I'm using this exact chamfer to do all of the edges and to do the inside and outside of all my handles. I did the same cut for all of my workbenches. That operation of cutting out that center handle and chamfering the edges is identical in making all of these slots for the sawhorse feet. It'll be a little easier for you because you won't have these sides or ends on. You'll be working on just a single piece of plywood, so it'll be easier to flip it over and detail out both sides. I've done a lot of videos on pattern routing, but I still get those questions the most. This is very simple. In the case of what you just saw here, I used my cordless router. It doesn't matter what brand. I used a bushing. These bushings are universal. They fit all routers except a few. I think Bosch has their proprietary, but this bushing here will fit on DeWalt. It will fit on Festool. It will fit on Porter Cable. I'm pretty sure it fits Makita. So if you're Bosch, you'll have to go with theirs. But the use of them is identical. That's just an attachment. These drop into this standard hole, and there's a nut on the other side it spins on. This is a standard base. It's not special to this. I can take this bushing off and I can put it right on any of my Festool routers. It doesn't matter. These fit on my Milwaukees as well. It fits every, this is the industry standard. Once you have it on the router, the size of bit you're cutting with doesn't matter for the end cut. If I'm using a 1/4 inch in this case with a 3/8 bushing, that's the matched bushing, I'm going to get the exact same cut that I would get if I used a 1/2 inch bit with a 5/8 inch bushing. Doesn't matter. It's the difference between the bit and the bushing, and because the difference is the same, it doesn't matter if my bit is 1/4, 5/16, 3/8, 1/2 inch. There is one small difference you'll get in the finished cut, and that is only in the radius. Just the corners. The bigger the bit, the bigger the radius in the corners will be. So with the 1/4 inch bit, you're going to get a tighter corner. I use solid carbide upcut spiral bits, and I like the CMT brand. That's what I use. They work well for me, and I keep them in stock of all different sizes, and I use them a lot, and so I get them resharpened, and they last a very long time. I highly recommend that you not save the money up front and buy high-speed steel. They will cost you a lot more money in the long term. For those that are following this companion video, there's a couple of additional things, 2 additional things that I'm going to do that are not in the plans. They're not necessary, but I did them on my other one. I liked it, so I'm going to do it on these. So again, only for those watching the video, you'll have the benefit of adding those 2 features. They're very easy to do, so you'll learn about them in the video. I'll point them out when I get there. The next thing you want to do is rip your side pieces and your end pieces. And then with the dimensions in the plans, you will make this shape. You could leave it up all the way, but I wanted it lower. I put my sawhorses in there. I set tools in here, and I didn't need them to be that tall. This transfers the load down, and these are sitting on top of the bottom, and the screws go up from underneath. And of course, I use wood glue as well. To make these cuts, you don't have to worry about what angle this is. You're just going to have the overall width of the board, and then we're going to measure in a distance, and again, it's on the plans, and we're going to have a reduced width of the board. And then you just take those 2 marks and just draw a straight line. I use a track saw to make that cut. So you'll get that cut, and then you've got this long cut here. You can use a track saw, or you can put it on your table saw. But I just use a track saw to make this entire cut. This is not difficult. This is standard woodworking. I'm just taking a board that is a long rectangle, and I'm removing some unnecessary material. It looks better, it works as well as the taller, and it makes it more functional. The board on the outside is taller because the inside board and these boards, these 2 sides and the 2 ends that are inside ends, are the same height, and they are mounted on top of the base. The 2 on the outside, they run past that additional 18 millimeters, so the 2 ends, the outside ends, are 18 millimeters taller. So you'll want to rip a board that the plans show you the width on that, and then you'll cut them to the length. You'll glue them up so they're laminated together. They're a strong block. For assembly, in addition to wood glue, I'm using these fast cap power head screws. I've used these for a very long time to install my cabinets to the walls. These I find to be the best screw you can get for that. So I wanted that big washer head and the power that I get out of it, the strength. So I'm using, I believe these are 2.5. I detailed that on the plans. I like this kit from Fast Cap, and if I can find this kit, if it's available, I'll put it in the link. The way the links on the plans work, rather than me putting individual materials or tools embedded in the plans, because that can change over time on availability, and maybe I find something better. So what we're doing now is I give a list to Chris she goes to the website where the plans are, and she puts up Paulk Smart Kart materials list. You click on that at our website, and it'll take you to all the stuff that you can get and where you can get them. At least you can find out about them if you want to find them somewhere else. The beauty of that, of course, is if I change things or update things, or one place we were getting them was not available, we can update that and it'll work for everybody no matter when you purchased your plans, because she then gives me a link back to our website to that point, and that's embedded on the plan. So if you've got the plans on your phone, on your computer, or on your tablet, then you open them up looking at them, you can just tap right on that hot link and it'll take you right to our site and right to all of the tools and materials and the links to them. Now there is a tool that I'm going to make sure is on the list, and that's this drill bit, also from FastCap. This drill bit is designed to work with the screws. This is what I've used for my cabinets, and this goes back to the beginnings of FastCap. That's what FastCap is. It's a cap that goes on these screws. You can get them in all different colors and wood species and finishes. You can make this very shallow cut for the screw head and drop it in so it's just beyond flush, and then those fast caps will fit on flush. Now we're not going to do that on this. You can see the screw heads, but I still like using this bit, and it cuts in, and it's got a depth. You just loosen this up and you can make the depth of this cut wherever you need it. And I just use just a small amount, and that way I'm able to countersink the screw just so that it's flush. Now your base is all built up. You've basically got a tray you've built. Beyond this, everything else is just detailing it out. We'll install the hardware and do a few other things. Now, one of the things you'll need to do is modify your sawhorses. I covered this in another video, but I was limited on the absolute width of the tray because it has to fit in the Smart Woodshop in the aisle. And I gave myself just a little bit of room so I could roll it in there. The sawhorses are wider than the interior dimension of the tray. So you will need to cut your sawhorses just the bottom feet on both sides. I have another video where I showed I took about 8 millimeters off of each side. I just set up my stops on the miter saw, I put it in, and I cut through both of them, and then I flipped it over and cut through the other side. So that's very easy to do. It'll take you about 10 seconds. There's one other modification to the sawhorses that I decided to make. The arches here that actually create the feet in the original design are 10 millimeters. So these are up from the feet 10 millimeters. I wanted these to drop into these slots, go all the way through, and actually just be flush with the bottom so they would be in contact with the floor. So when the tray is sitting on the floor, the sawhorses are touching the floor, and therefore the height of my bench remains what it always was. So we're not making the sawhorses any longer. We're making the feet longer by raising this arch up. And that was also very easy to do. If you built the bench, most likely you made the pattern to make all of those sawhorse sides. And all I did was clamp it to each side. I had to do one side at a time, so you've got 2 sets of sawhorses, which means you have to do this 4 times. It takes a bit longer. But I made a mark to give me the height that I wanted, the finished height. And remember, with a pattern, you're going to lose a 1/16 of an inch or 1.5 millimeters for this one edge. So I wanted to go up another 10 millimeters. So I just rounded it up to 12 millimeters, made them a little bit taller. And I set these up on those marks, clamped them, and then took my router and finished that cutout. Now what I'll do when I have a little more time is I'm actually going to take my pattern and I am going to cut this up, that extra 10 millimeters. So you may want to go ahead and do that first. If you go ahead and make this, instead of 10 millimeters, make it 20 millimeters, then you can just clamp it on as you would and just make those cuts. Very quick to do, not a lot of calculations there. So that's 2 modifications. I made notes on that in the plans. I said there were 2 additional upgrades I did to my cart, which is not on the plan, and this is the first one. I've got my sawhorses in, they're in the tabs, and they're pretty tight. Everything is laid out pretty good. So this is not absolutely necessary. I took some strips, just some plywood I had left over, 18 mil plywood. I ripped them to 30 millimeters, sanded the edges, cleaned them up, and I cut them to the length that they just fit inside of the tray from side to side. Inside of the sawhorses, I put them right up next to the base of the sawhorse and push them tight. I want to make sure that they're pushing the sawhorse up tight to the outside of of those slots that you've made. And that's how they're going to be installed. But I want to go ahead and drill some holes, and I like uniformity. So what I want to do is put 4 screws in each of these. And I want to do it so the screws fall about where the feet are. And because I like things uniform, I'm going to measure where those marks are, 25 millimeters, and the second one, 270 millimeters. Mirror those from the other side. And then I like to find centers. I know this is 30 millimeters wide, so I'll make a cross mark. I have my 4 identical strips pre-drilled, ready to install. I've got them up tight to the sawhorse. It kind of locks the sawhorse in. And then I'm going to use just some 1¼ inch, and I'm not using any glue. With the sawhorse in, I can't get to the interior 2 screws, but I can, because I have the space here, I can get the 2 exterior screws in. It just locks them in nice and tight. The next thing to do is install the 4 blocks. There's 2 on each end. These are on the plans. This is where the 2 workbenches drop in. So one will drop in, and this will keep it to the outside. The other one will drop in there, and that keeps the benches from tipping in transit. If you're doing the 2 benches and the 2 carts, the way I do, then the other one's identical, and it goes in on the top with these same blocks, and it locks everything together. My wheels have been installed 4 different times. I've tested and sampled. They give you a template. You just put this template on the corner there, and it's very easy to set up. You've got 6 screw holes on each one. You'll just make your marks and install them, and it'll work great. For me though, I discovered that I enjoyed using the workbenches with the wheels down and the cart up quite a bit of time. I still need to drop them down for that really stable. If I'm planing or doing some heavy routing or things, I need the bench on the floor and stable. But there's a lot of times I'm just installing cabinets or hardwood, and I just need to rip some wood and cross cut some wood. And it's just really nice to be able to just move the bench just a little bit here and there without having to flip the wheels down every time. So I wanted to have the base as close to the floor as was reasonable to still give me my mobility to lift things up, to move, but also to not be that much higher off the floor. And I had started with them as high as possible because initially these wheels were going to be not only for moving around the job site or around the shop, but they were also going to be the wheels for me to go up the ramp and into the trailer. And I realized that wasn't going to work. The wheels are too small. The further I mounted them, the further I mounted the hardware down to get the wheels up, it was harder to lift. It didn't work out. I decided in the stored mode to move the cube with everything in it, distances and up ramps and things, that I wanted a big set of heavy duty wheels for that. Officially say use the template, it works. It's what the manufacturer says. If you want to mimic what I've done here, 3 millimeters down from the top edge, drilling holes to center in hardware like in hinges and stuff, I like using these Vicks bits. Now it's all assembled and ready to put to use, except remember I said there were 2 bonuses you were going to learn in this video. I made a bar tying the 2 wheels together so each end can be lowered as one, cutting your time to raise and lower in half from 18 mil ply. Laminated it together so it's 36 millimeters and it's ripped to 50 millimeters. I put a good layer of glue between the 2 and clamped them up and left them overnight so I've got a solid beam. And then I sanded off the glue and I took my bevel, my chamfer bit, and I made a chamfer all the way around. So I've got this nice solid bar. Now you don't have to do this. If you've got some hardwood, some maple, some oak, something like that, 2x2, you can just cut a piece of that and use it to do the same thing. I'm gonna mount the bar all the way down at the end so that I have the most amount of leverage. I'm going to take the flat part of the bar and I'm going to take it right to the radius where the foot pedal starts to curve. I'm going to take it right to there, and that's where I'm going to mount it. So I want to drill a hole so that I can mount a bolt up through the foot pedal into this. I'm going to drill that hole centered on the bar, and then I'm going to come in from the end so it's centered on the foot pedal. So I take the width of the foot, which is 42 millimeters. I'm going to measure in half of that distance from the end. So I want to drill all the way through the wood and through the foot pedal so everything lines up. To help me hold things in place, I cut just a piece of scrap plywood. I measured and ripped it to the width. It butts up against the screw heads on the hardware. That gets me right to that point where the curve starts on the foot pedal. With it clamped in position, I'll drill the pilot holes. I want to be careful. I don't have much to grab onto here as I'm drilling through. I don't want to grab under and have the drill bit poke me in the finger. I'm using 1/4 hex head bolts, and what I had was 1.25 inches. They're a little too short to go all the way through. So I'm going to drill a countersink hole that the nut will drop into so this bolt will be long enough. Alternately, you could buy the right size bolt. I'm going to use a fastener bit. This is my 20 millimeter bit that I drill out all the bench tops with. It's big enough that these washers will drop inside of that. I have these pilot holes drilled in the metal. Probably the hardest part of this is drilling through. It's pretty thick metal. So I'm going to step my way up and go a little bit bigger, until I get to my 1/4 inch. Let's set it up and see how it works. I am so ready to get this on a job. I cannot wait to pick up a house to fix up for us to live in or build a brand new one from scratch. This is going to be a lot of fun to use. The Smart Kart plans are ready for you to purchase and download right now. If you enjoy these videos, if you've learned anything, if you'd like to see me make more, the most important thing you can do is give me a thumbs up. Remember, subscribe, but it's really important you ring that bell so that YouTube will let you know when I put up a new video. Also, if you get a chance, you can help me grow this channel by sharing it with somebody you know. Thanks for dropping into the Smart Wood Shop. Stay safe and have a great day.